Hello and welcome to another episode of Ticket Booth to Vocal Booth. I'm Brandon, and today we're going to be reviewing the Super Mario Bros. Movie, the 2023 one. Yes, old joke from the John Wick review. But anyway, yes, the new film from Illumination, the company that brought us the Despicable Me and Minions films.
Hello.
And it's interesting because going into this one, the initial social media buzz was very promising. It was very positive. And then the main critic reviews start to show up on Rotten Tomatoes, and typically I try not to read a lot of reviews that might end up swaying my own views of the film, and even seeing like a percentage for a film starts to make me kind of second guess my own rating system for a movie, or not rating system, but a rating for the film itself. And yeah, when I saw it was hovering like around 50-ish% on Rotten Tomatoes, that just kind of made me go, all right, that's interesting. Well, I'm still reviewing it, so let's see what happens. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised because even nowadays, even though it's been 30 years since the last Super Mario Bros. Film, and pretty much since the start of the whole video game to movie adaptation style or subgenre, because a lot of people forget the 1993 Super Mario Bros. Film was essentially the first film adaptation of a video game, or at least, feature-length film adaptation of a video game. But that said, 30 years later, this, I personally feel, is really good. It's quaint. I think that's the best way to put it. And I kind of get where some of the negative reviews were coming from, but I also get where the positive reviews were coming from. And I wouldn't say I landed in the middle. I definitely landed more towards positive, because one thing people were saying online is, don't forget, even though Super Mario Bros. Is from 1985, it's still a movie meant for kids, primarily, first and foremost. So you do have fans like myself who grew up with Super Mario Bros. Literally. I mean, I am personally about as old as Super Mario Bros. Itself. Not Mario Bros. In general, because Mario did appear in other games before Super Mario Bros., such as Donkey Kong and, plain Mario Bros., where it's just him and Luigi in the sewer knocking out Koopas. But no, I've pretty much been around as long as Super Mario Bros. Itself. And the thing is, some people were complaining that, there wasn't much in the way of plot. And to be fair, I don't know if they've ever actually played a Mario Bros. Game, because Mario Brothers is one of those series, one of those franchises where a lot of the mainline games aren't like super plot heavy. And even the ones that did have, specific plot lines, typically they dealt with the cliche damsel in distress of Bowser or King Koopa kidnapping Princess Toadstool, or she's better known nowadays as Princess Peach. And obviously, first of all, that plot line is very redundant, because that was essentially the plot of the original Super Mario Brothers, part of the plot of Super Mario Bros. 3, and part of the plot of Super Mario World. Because the thing is, with the later games, it's like, Bowser kidnapped the princess and also did this thing. Like in Super Mario Bros. 3, Bowser kidnapped the princess and also changed a lot of the rulers of the different lands into different animals. And Super Mario World, I think there was something involving Yoshi as well. But yeah, so that was the tricky thing in even adapting this into a film, because the funny thing is the 93 movie didn't even have Princess Peach / Toadstool. It had Princess Daisy from the Super Mario Land series. But in this case, they kind of did a bit of a swap between characters, where it's now Luigi who's been kidnapped, which gives us a nice little bit of Luigi's Mansion play in the movie. And fingers crossed that we'll actually get that movie too. I know Charlie Day is definitely pushing for a Luigi's Mansion film, so I'd be all about that. And there's also rumors about a Donkey Kong spinoff as well. But that being said, let me hop into the voice acting in the film, because I remember a year and a half ago, it's been that long since we first found out who was doing the voices in the movie, and most of the cast announcements were, held in decent, positive regard. But the most glaring one was Chris Pratt as Mario, because everybody was just going, really? Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy? He's gonna be Mario? Why? And so when the first trailers came out for the film, I believe late last year, everyone was hyper-analyzing Chris Pratt's voice as Mario, and I think he did a good job, in my opinion. A lot of people wanted Charles Martinet, the original voice of Mario. I say original, the first prominent voice of Mario via Super Mario 64 and many of the later games. But he's actually in the film in 2 roles. And, one's very appropriate. I'm not going to give it away, but I think it was a very appropriate extended cameo for him. And the thing is, they acknowledge the stereotypical Italian accent very early in the film in a very self-referential way. So it's like they're observing it, but they're also going, it's not really gonna fly at this point. So we have less Italian stereotype and more Brooklyn style accent. And even that, apparently Chris Pratt was saying that he was trying to find like the right level to do the accent without even that becoming a stereotype. And I think he did really well. I mean, the fact of the matter is, over the course of the film, you completely forget that he's doing the voice. But everyone else, I feel like, nailed it, right out of the park. Because sometimes when you have, I don't want to say stunt casting, but when you cast big name actors for your animated film, it can feel like stunt casting, and sometimes there might be at least one odd person out. I really didn't feel that with this cast. I mean, Charlie Day as Luigi, I was already very excited for. I was kind of sad we didn't get more of it. All the more reason why I'm looking forward to a Luigi's Mansion film, if they do one, because that's more of a case of that's what Charlie Day wants to do, but nothing's been greenlit. Anya Taylor-Joy as Princess Peach, I love what she did. She definitely added a lot of heart to the character, because sadly, with the more cliched damsel in distress versions of Peach that we've had in the past, they've made her sound sometimes a little airheaded, but thankfully that is nowhere near the case here. She actually is kind of the one who trains Mario on how to defend himself once he's in the Mushroom Kingdom, so that was a nice change of pace. Keegan-Michael Key as Toad. Obviously, I think there's a bit of a pitch shifting in his voice to kind of make him sound a lot shorter, a lot smaller than he really is, but he was really good too. I really liked what he did. And then, of course, Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, as mentioned earlier. Allegedly, they've greenlit a Donkey Kong film already, so I'm looking forward to what he gives us with Donkey Kong in a full film with him as the lead. And then, of course, I think the biggest standout voice in the film was Jack Black as Bowser. And yes, there are some musically inclined moments in the movie that he was absolutely perfect in. And once I saw those moments, I thought, okay, yeah, this is why Jack Black was Bowser. You couldn't have had somebody else do this voice. Make him terrifying when you need to be, funny when you need to be, singing when you need to sing, things like that. And he was just perfect as Bowser, and I'm looking forward to hopefully getting more of him as Bowser in the future, because let's be honest, how many Mario games have we had where Bowser is not the main villain? I mean, obviously the second game gave us, what was his name? Wart? The giant bullfrog. But 9 times out of 10 it's Bowser in some capacity. But and the animation of course was gorgeous. I mean, it's tricky when you take a game series that's been in 3D since 1996 and then making it into a CG film without just feeling redundant, especially as the graphics have gotten better over the years, and it definitely feels very cinematic. It doesn't feel like you're just watching a cutscene from a game. So yeah, it's gorgeous, and the music score by Brian Tyler, I cannot stress how amazing of a job he did, because a lot of movies based on games don't often dive into the actual music cues from the games. The only other example I can think of off the top of my head is 2006's Silent Hill, where they used the original Akira Yamaoka tracks, some remixing by Jeff Dana, but for the most part it was Akira's original tracks. With this, Brian Tyler basically did very orchestral compositions of the original Super Mario Bros. Cues. Now, that being said, one of the few cons I have with the film is the fact that it does rely on familiar needle drops, the memba berries in those cases. Some work, some don't. Like, I got a bit of a chuckle when I heard Battle Without Honor or Humanity, which of course is known for the last 20 years as the Kill Bill theme. That was a nice little gag there. The kids aren't going to get that joke, but people like me got that gag. One that felt kind of out of place, even though I liked the song and it was fun to hear it in the theater, was a-ha's Take On Me. I didn't really think much of it at the time, but I found out later on, Brian Tyler actually composed a track for the scene that it's used in. I'm not going to go into too much detail with it, but the short version is that he actually was composing cues inspired by Donkey Kong Country music cues. And I would have loved to have heard that in the theater, because it was just so funny, nearly 30 years after Donkey Kong Country, hearing an orchestral cinematic version of the Donkey Kong Country themes. That would have been amazing, but we got Take On Me instead, but what can you do? But overall, it was a lot of fun. Like I said, some of the critics that were a little harsh on it were saying, like, oh, it doesn't have much of a plot. Mario Brothers games in general didn't have much of a plot, but they managed to find a way to take the gameplay of those games and turn it almost into a visual ride. because, you know, it was a nice brisk hour and a half roughly. And yeah, it was kind of just like being on a ride, you know, fun voice acting, gorgeous CG work. You know, some nice funny moments that worked for, you know, fun for the whole family. Yeah, it was harmless, and I'm looking forward to whatever they do next, sequels, spinoffs, what have you. I think, I mean, there is a little more they can do with, you know, storylines in later films, but I think for now, just to kind of get the ball rolling, to say that it surpassed the '93 film is an understatement. Not that that was a high bar to jump over. That'd be like trying to pole vault over, you know, when you're just supposed to be competing in the high jump, you know, for lack of a better term. But that being said, as I've mentioned previously, we rate by VOMO. So how many VOMOs would I give the Super Mario Brothers movie? I would say 3.5 out of 5. Like I said, it's a, you know, a harmless, fun ride for an hour and a half. Definitely one of the better game to film adaptations I've seen in a while. And you know, I'm hoping that we'll see more in the future. I'm looking forward to whatever else they have in mind for the Super Mario. Well, I don't want to say Galaxy universe. But yeah, I feel like there's a lot that they can tap into. And one other thing I love, by the way, is that if you're an old school fan of Mario Brothers, like from the 80s, 90s, like myself, there's plenty in there that's going to be, you know, more suited for people like us who grew up with, you know, the Nintendo and Super Nintendo era games and N64, without relying too much on like the Wii era or Nintendo Switch era of games, or even Wii U. But yeah, no, I think it was a lot of fun. And one last bit of irony before we head out. Speaking of Mario characters, though, funny enough, a voice actor who does the voice of Ludwig von Koopa in Mario Kart 8, David Goldfarb, has actually done a review for the VOMO. So yeah, this review of the Mario movie isn't exactly the first time that the worlds of Vocal Booth to Go and Nintendo have sort of collided, so definitely check out that video when you can. We'll actually put a clickable link at the end. But yeah, aside from that, not too sure what the next film is going to be. It might be Evil Dead Rise, something a little on the spoopier side of things. But yeah, in the meantime, as always, if you are intrigued about the VOMO itself, visit us at vocalbooth2go.com. Check out the VOMO there. Watch some of our other videos, and of course, check out the David Goldfarb review of the VOMO. And yeah, until then, have fun with the movies.